Jamming out to the new intro music. What's going on? It's Kevin Kenny. This is the Build series live from New York City. And you know when you find a group or an artist that you really like, you try to turn your friends onto it, you're like, well, they kind of sound like this, or they kind of sound like this group or this artist. I don't think there's anybody that sounds like our guest today. They have billions of views online and millions of fans around the world. Please welcome Jon and Steve, the piano guys, to Build.
How are you?
It's good to see you guys.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks so much, Kevin, for having us on the show. This is such an honor for us to be here, and so fun to just have these people who've taken time out of their really super busy New York day to be here.
Oh, absolutely. Jon, anything to add there?
Absolutely.
Profound.
We were having so much fun in the green room backstage, we almost forgot to start the show. I mean, you guys are like a hoot, really. I mean, like such a big appeal. Of course, the music is there, the creativity is there.
This guy
Get
is
your
a
hands
hoot.
off me. Get your hands off me.
This guy is world-class humor right here.
The great thing about being Jon and Steve way before the Piano Guys, we were sharing the stage way before the Piano Guys. We've known each other for 20 years. And so we built this brotherhood that is just this amalgam of stage performance and tomfoolery.
How did you two, like, aside from the music, we'll get into how the Piano Guys started. It's a story that's been told many times, but how did you two meet just as people?
I was left in a basket on Jon's doorstep, actually, and he raised me.
Down.
Yeah, it was something like that. Yeah. No, I always tease Jon because he's the oldest of the group, so I say that we met when I was 13 and he was 47, and it's around there. It's around that time. We actually just shared the local music scene in Utah, and it's a tight local music scene. And I was playing with this awesome guy named Peter Breinholt who shared the stage with Jon, and I just asked Jon, hey, could I play on one of your tunes because I just love your stuff.
You seem old and wise, you know, and you sought advice, maybe.
Yes, right. I was needing a sagacious pianist. Yes,
right. Well, hey, this is a funny question, but like, who's like the biggest band or artist out of Utah? Like, I don't know if I'm that well acquainted with the Utah music scene just overall.
Wow,
like, what kind
question.
of music comes out of there?
The Tabernacle Choir.
That's right.
All right.
The Mormon Tabernacle Choir. The Osmonds came out of Utah.
Oh, okay, right on.
Yeah, Donnie and Marie, which that's more his era.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Thanks for pretending like you know them. And
I was just in Vegas,
I don't
so
know.
there
I
are
mean,
a bunch of...
what wasn't
Killers,
She
right?
Daisy out of
She
there?
Daisy.
Oh, the Killers. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. Imagine Dragons. I'm just trying to think of other.
We have Utah roots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
cool.
So. Lindsay Sterling, good friend of ours.
Oh, wow, yeah.
She's out of Utah. Yeah.
Speaking of, Lindsay Sterling, you bring her up, classical musicians. You do such cool things with the cello. It almost reminds me of like Tom Morello with the guitar, where he just makes that instrument sound like it's not even a guitar. He can make it sound like a turntable. I mean, you make it sound like a drum. How do you discover ways to, because I've seen you on like CBS Sunday Morning, like just, pounding on that thing, making these noises. How do you discover those things? Is it very natural?
I think it's. I appreciate that that you have recognized that it's a cool thing. For me, it's just ADHD put to good use. Or trying to put ADHD to good use. And honestly, it's just this this opportunity of invention that gets me excited about music, that keeps it fresh. If you draw your bow across the string the same way over and over and over again, there still is satisfaction that can come from that. But as you explore the limits of your instrument and push those limits, and I love what Beethoven said, not just practicing your art, but forcing your way into its secrets. That is where you reach the divinity in music. And that's when I feel so fulfilled, is to discover the limits and the outer limits of the instrument that and so now I have over 30 cellos at this point.
Wow.
I tell people 29 because it's starting to be ridiculous at this point, But and it's just so fun because they're all built from different materials, and I've found that given time and some invention, you can kind of do just about anything you want on a cello.
The thing that's nice is Al Vanderbeek has a studio, and we can use the studio as a writing instrument. So there's a lot of experimentation, and he's just a genius with all of the, the electronic aspects of things.
And it wasn't until Al I joined forces in the Piano Guys and with Al that this actually came out. So a great message of the Piano Guys is to surround yourself with people that are so much better and so much more musical and geniuses that it just demands that you be better yourself. And so being around Al was just this catalyst for me because he encouraged me and was patient while I tried to explore. And then he had that ear to say, that's cool, that's not. And that confidence was kind of what we needed a little bit too. You know, we've done the same kind of thing with piano too. We've had a couple tunes where we've explored the limits of the piano too. And
I loved when Steve got his new electronic cello, because we literally tried to see how many different sounds we could get out of the cello. We would hit it, like one of my favorites, we would bonk the peg on concrete, and it sounded like the coolest bass.
yeah.
Kick drum,
It was
you
such a
know, and
different
then we
vibe.
scratched it with a quarter, and it was like the, you know, the record scratch thing, the
Yeah.
hip hop thing, and
over time,
I think we found 40 different
Oh,
textures
yeah.
that we invented, and then we tried to put them all into Michael Meets Mozart.
Our first original.
Our first
yeah.
original tune. So that was a really fun process.
No pun intended, but do you find the piano to be just as limitless an instrument, or is it a bit more confined?
I
in terms
mean,
of
you don't have
possibilities?
the electronic aspect. I think if you get into the electronic aspect of the keyboard, then you're into synthesizers, which is just, it opens all kinds of, you know. But the thing that, you know, that Steve and Al have done with the cello is that they've kind of done that same thing in the cello world, which I think is very unique and hasn't ever been done. So
I've always wanted to ask, like, an actual, like, you know, really talented world-class piano player.
We'll find one for you.
I'll go find one for you, I think.
if there's one. Hey, she might be one.
What are your thoughts on the keytar?
Yeah, I've never done one.
No, you
but
never, like, had
I
an
want to,
interest?
you know, I want to try one. I would love to try one.
That was hot in the 80s, so it was about when you were in your 40s. So maybe you could remember the.
That one perfect.
I just ignore Steve.
Hey, bring up Al's studio. It's really cool. I know it was a big talked about point where you guys, when you signed to Sony, started working with them. You still recorded in that studio, I understand. Do you still record primarily in Al's studio, or have you branched out nowadays?
95% of the stuff is done in our TPG home studio. It's our home court advantage, and we found that we can draw from every kind of resource we'd ever need, and it just feels like home there too. And I think comfort is a big factor in creativity, and so I think that's really important, not to subject ourselves to all kinds of different locations and people. We just feel our creative process and know how it vibes. We call it the chills up, which instead of chills down a spine like in a horror movie, it's a chills up your spine. You ever get that feeling?
Yeah.
When you just lock into something and you're like, ooh, it's like this elevating breath that comes into you. We felt that so many times in that studio that it almost is residual in there. It almost feels like it hangs in the air a little bit.
Yeah.
So we love creative spaces like that have just had those just moments hanging in the air historically.
Well, I think the thing that's amazing is a lot of times we'll get these little ideas, and they'll get buried in the songs. And I just am amazed as I uncover and listen to tracks. I'm like, that's in there? That thing's cool. We got to bring that to light in another song, you know. And we feel like there's a lot of cool material that doesn't even
We've got a whole
see the light of
catalog
day.
whole catalog of bootlegged songs that are within songs. One day we'll release those, maybe.
Yeah. We look forward to it. I wanted to ask you, you kind of shed some light there on the decision to record in Al's studio. How much would you say is artistic, like you just talked about, but then also at the core of what you guys do with the piano guys is family, and the idea of family and the importance of family. Is there an element of that too, of just wanting to keep it home and not really mess that up?
That is a great question, and you hit it right on the head, Kevin. Thank you for being so well informed and very perceptive of you. At our core is family. It is so critically important that no success we could ever attain anywhere in the world could make up for a failure in our family. And so we consider that the most important thing, the most important place, the most important people. So you're right. The more we're home, the better. So we really do try to not travel as much. It probably drives our manager, our agency, and our record label crazy, because it's like, we'll do this. There's all these opportunities. We say no to about 90% of the things that come our way because we don't want to miss out on our children's childhood. I mean, when you come home from tour and your 5-year-old daughter runs to you and gives you this amazing embrace, you say, oh yeah, this is where joy is, and I never want to lose that.
Do you ever find that that awareness of how important family is for you guys, does it allow you greater creative freedom? And what I'm sort of getting at is, as an artist, if you maybe misprioritize things and you put the commercial success at the top and maybe family lower down on that ladder of priorities, you might be afraid to take risks or try different things because you don't want to mess up this all important commercial success you have. With you guys, it seems like family is paramount. So have you found that it's just like, well, look, this could go away tomorrow, we'd be fine. So why not try this crazy zany thing?
I think it definitely takes the pressure off, and I think it also prevents burnout because you're not always doing the same thing and worrying about the same thing. I think if you have, 2 or 3 things that are really important to you, it's a nice balance.
It's awesome. I love that. And I think if I could add, just when you find your core, when you find your center, you trust in that. You begin to trust in that. For us, that's family, as you point out, but it's also faith. Right. We feel like if we can turn our lives over to a God who's interested in our lives, then we can count on the fact that if we're doing the best we can, it'll all work out in the end. And so, like you said, we take the risks, we try to calculate those risks as best as we can, but in the end, we just try to go on faith and not abandoning our family, not abandoning our faith, and trust that everything will work out. And we found that that's the only thing that has really worked for the piano guys. We can't pinpoint a certain thing in our career that was sort of the launch. It was just trying to turn our lives over to something we believed was bigger than us and trust in that.
Speaking of faith, I wanted to ask you guys, you've had such a unique journey to this success that you've had, today. You're here on Build, you're on the Today Show, of course, billions of views, as I alluded to at the top. Did you have the similar journey to this faith that you guys share, or was it different for everybody?
It's interesting. I think we're really similar. Yeah. It's, I don't know how it happened, but...
I think that's that's the X factor in the piano guys and keeping us together and keeping us, and keeping our solidarity consistent too. There have been times when we've had to sort of get on our knees and just pray to find what is right rather than who is right. And that's tough because you're sort of, there's this creative attrition that occurs when you're creating things. And that is, you don't always agree. And there's vulnerability in creating something too, and ownership of it, and who gets the credit, and there's money involved. I mean, you're throwing in every single possible thing that could break up a group. And that's why so many groups break up. And so we've always tried to fall back on faith and family when we've had those moments of creative attrition that really keep us, or those moments of creative attrition that have the potential to tear us apart. And so I think that's a great, very perceptive question. We do find common ground on that.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly served you guys well. You were on national television this morning on Today's Show, performing a song that I got to ask you about. It was BTS's Epiphany, I understand. Is this right?
That's right.
All right.
That's right. A couple of old dudes doing K-pop.
It was combined with Bach.
That's right.
It was a Bach tune that I learned when I was, studying classical piano, one of my favorites. So we brought those two together. And that's something we love to do, is we like to take old world and mix it with new world.
Right.
So.
And you'll hear a lot of that on our Limitless album, and that's kind of what we're about, like Jon mentioned. And BTS was especially personal for us because, like you said, combining K-pop with classical is something that I've never seen anybody do. We've never seen anybody do.
I don't think
that was a fun challenge. But then in addition to that, I actually served a mission for the church I belong to, which is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I was there serving the people, learning the language, eating the food, and I grew to love the culture so much that it's a second home for me. So K-pop isn't just this cultural appropriation. It isn't just trying to grab at a popular straw. It actually is a real personal affection for me. And so, 한국 사랑합니다. I love Korea, and I love the BTS army too. And I feel like I could call myself one of them rather than just trying to be on the bandwagon just for popularity's sake.
No, totally. That's so cool that it's deeply rooted like that. And I understand, Jon, you have a catchprise you can share with us.
That's right. When we first played in Korea, since I learned the language, I wanted to teach Jon how to say I play the piano. So
when we performed there.
When we performed in Korea, I said, I've taught Jon how to say I play the piano. And so go ahead, tell him.
나는 바보입니다.
Which, if there are Koreans in the room, they'd understand that to me. Oh, 한국 사람이세요? Oh, 재밌죠? I don't get good 얘기예요.
I have a good pronunciation.
Yeah, what he actually said was, I'm an idiot. That's what I taught him to say. But I'm sorry, I should have told you that. Yeah, no, he knew what he was saying. But that's what we love, just kind of, I think one of the key factors of a musician should be not taking yourself too seriously. And so that's why it's fun just to jab at each other.
Victor Borge was a real hero.
Right. For both of us. And just not taking yourself so seriously opens up this joy rather than perfectionism, which is toxic when it comes to classical music especially. So if you can draw yourself away from that and just have fun and seek the joy, and also not worry about jabbing each other, which we do all the time in just a fun-loving way. Yeah. It's been a real good part of our journey.
I mean, I know the BTS Army very, very well.
Oh, good.
I spoke with BTS during one of their first U.S. appearances here.
Awesome.
And we've been lucky enough on Build to have some of the biggest K-pop groups in the world stop by during their first trips here in the U.S. When did you guys first discover BTS, though? Was it back in Korea? Did you hear about them? Or was it more of a, I know, getting back to family, I know sort of, there's an editorialization process of like, what song should we cover? What should we do with the kids? Do the kids like BTS? Like, where did you guys first hear about BTS?
For us, we always go to our kids for ideas.
Okay.
I mean, they definitely have a fresher approach to music than we often do. And so BTS was a factor there, but it was also upon recommendation of our manager, who sometimes sends us stuff. And we were aware of their music, but he sent this new album they've created is something of a legend. I think it's legendary. I think
absolutely.
The songwriting is so incredible, and just the eclectic mix of the textures they've used and how deeply they've dived into their subject matter. I was really impressed. And when we love that, because we loved music, we love musicality, we love depth, and we saw that in this K-pop album out of nowhere. And so we just grabbed a hold of that. We loved
I think the other thing I saw was a real positive message in the lyrics, where a lot of kids and social media are really questioning themselves and having a low self-image, and that whole idea of I'm the one I should love it's a great message. It's
absolutely.
a
really great message to support. So
yeah, I'm so happy you guys just said that about Love Yourself and the Love Yourself series, because I think especially in American media, everyone gets caught up in the hysteria of it all, right? And the fanfare and these crazy fans of the Army, right? But no, like you just said, Steve, it's about the music, it's about the lyrics, and it's a really impressive body of work, and I'm glad you guys are fans of it. Speaking of impressive bodies of work, let's talk about Limitless. This is the new album, and first off, do we know what city this is? We were talking in the back, like what city, what skyline is this?
This is actually just an amalgam of a couple different cities.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, you see a little bit of New York in here, and I actually couldn't name all of them myself, but we wanted kind of this eclectic mix of all kinds of different cityscapes against this beach backdrop, because that you're looking at the beauty of the earth, but then this incredible awe-inspiring sight of man-made structures as well. And then the juxtaposition of those two kind of goes along well with our theme of Limitless.
That is really cool. You know what, Limitless, when I heard that, I thought of something I heard you say, Steve, about Paul, who helped, obviously, if you guys don't know, Paul was the owner of a store named The Piano Guys, I think. And then Jon comes in one day as a customer. He starts shooting these YouTube videos. He knows you, and the rest is history. But you said Paul had unlocked or had mastered the power of possibility. I thought that was a beautiful sentiment, and I hope it's one you still feel. But Limitless and the power of possibility. Talk about Paul and the importance of Paul to this group.
I love Paul. Being associated with Paul has been a tremendous blessing in my life, and really has been such a catalyst for me, just like Al. And he has mastered the art of possibility. And in that, I mean to say that he looks at something and says, instead of asking why, he asks the question, why not? And he was the one that was insistent upon using these pianos that belonged to his piano store to airlift them by helicopter onto a cliff, or put them on a speeding train, or on a beach, or on an ice rink in New York. One of our when we got to the ice rink, the piano movers were like, "There's no way I'm putting that piano on that ice rink." So we just said, "Okay, set it up right here." And then when they left, we pushed it onto the ice rink. It's just like, because nobody wanted to do this. It's just you don't do that. So to break conventional borders is a gift that Paul has. And he's a risk taker, and I love that about him.
And I also have to say, it's Paul's fault that we have this weird name, The Piano Guys. That is Paul's fault.
He told me it was your fault.
Not my fault. We tried to change our name, but that was the name of Paul's store.
You have no idea what it's like to live as false advertisement.
Yeah,
I mean, everybody
Steve.
that watches our videos, they're like, "What's the deal with the cello dude?" Like, I remember one of my favorite comments of all time is this guy that's watching one of our videos that's cello only. And he comments, and below he's like, "Thumbs up for the dude that doesn't even know what instrument he's playing." I'm like,
We
I
actually
thumbs that one up. I was like, that was pretty good.
we actually wanted to change our name, but we would have lost millions of YouTube hits to change the name.
It's great. It's a great opportunity to explain who we are and tell the story.
I want to ask you guys in closing here. We're going to turn it over to a couple audience questions in a second. But you talk about YouTube and you talk about ice rinks and cliffs, and I mean, there's such a spectacle to the videos that you guys do, and it helped you catch attention early on. How do you balance, though, spectacle and artistry, right? Because I think it's really easy in the world of YouTube to sort of let spectacle get in the way of artistry. How have you guys balanced that?
Let Paul worry about it.
Right. Paul, you're the boss.
You know, I think that's a great question that has never been asked us before. They assume that that's just part of the package, but we've actually been very methodical and careful and conscientious about making sure the videos enhance the music rather than take away from the music.
Well,
And that is a conscientious decision we made, and in the process of doing that, one of the ways we do that is we actually just film the music over and over and over again, and then cut the video to match the music rather than cutting the music to match the video. So it's kind of like film score in reverse a little bit.
Right, okay.
So, and I think that really helps where we're trying to tell a story, a loose story with the music, but without taking away from the music. I think Paul and his team and Shay Scott, who's awesome, and several of the people we worked with, they just do such a good job with it. It's a blessing.
It sounds weird, but I think it's one of the greatest accomplishments that you guys have done in your career.
No, that's
is because
cool.
because it's so easy to let like the story be, oh my God, these dudes are on a
Front and
cliff.
center, yeah.
But it's like you couldn't tour like you guys do. You couldn't sell records like you guys do if it wasn't about the music. Really quickly, just for me as a music video fan, do you guys ever get inspired or take from classic music videos? Because when I first saw you guys on the cliff, first thing I thought of was Slash, Guns N' Roses, November Rain. Do you guys ever like borrow from that? Like, well, what if we did that with like our music?
Oh, I think imitation is the greatest form of flattery. I'm sure that we've done that, it maybe consciously, maybe subconsciously at times.
Yeah.
We all borrow from each other. I think it's a wonderful part of the human race, just borrowing and lending as we go and building upon each other. We're all standing on the shoulders.
Plagiarizing.
Yeah, right.
No,
But
I
I
didn't
think
mean to say
standing on
that.
the shoulders of people that have done it already is something we shouldn't be ashamed of. I think that's a blessing of being a progeny of people, incredible people like Slash, who's done stuff like that before. Absolutely.
That's a collab. I would
But
be
it's
down
true
for.
when you know if you are a cook, for example, and you taste something that you love and you incorporate it in a new way. That's kind of what we feel like we do with classical music. Find stuff that we think everyone would love if they only knew about it, and so we introduce it in a new way.
Definitely.
It may sound like self-deprecation too, but our biggest curse was our greatest blessing. We're cursed with non-rock star looks. That's euphemistically put. We are not the rock stars you'd expect to be successful. We don't have that look. So we actually had to focus on the music even more because people didn't like looking at us, really. So it was more about the music because it couldn't be about us. No one has a poster of us in their locker at high school, oh, I love Steve. No, not at all. That never happens. So it's about the music. Nobody ever comes up to us fangirling and wanting a selfie. They're just like, they say, I love your music. And I'm so grateful it's about the music and not about our personas per se.
Heartthrobs, maybe, but definitely amazing musicians.
I think you were good looking maybe 40 or 50 years ago, though, I think.
Still good looking.
All right, let's get to our first audience question. I think it's going to come from right up front.
Hi there.
Oh, tell us your name, too. I love to get to know you.
My name is Nettie.
Hi, Nettie.
I'm actually a musician at NYU.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Honored to have you here.
Thank you. So you guys have done a lot of covers of many different artists. So my question is, if you could collaborate with any artist around the world, who would it be and why?
Living or dead or just living?
Living or dead? Yeah.
My dream is Antonin Dvorak, if you're going to let me have anybody living or dead, because I think I could just sit at his feet for hours and just take in his genius. One of my favorite stories of his is when he was in Spillville, Iowa, just on this hiatus composing, and he's with his grandchildren or with these children, and he's along this river and he hears the birds chirping and he starts writing down on his sleeve the sounds of the birds, which he uses for his American String Quartet. And finally he gets frustrated and he goes, kids, we're done. We got to get out of here. And they're like, well, we just started. Why are we leaving? And he says, because I've run out of sleeve. Like he's so excited to write down these sounds that are just inherent in nature. And I love genius like that could just pull it right out of the air. So I would want to collaborate with Antonin Dvorak.
Boy, it's hard to narrow it down, but one that comes to my mind is Sting. I think it would be really, really cool to collaborate musically with him.
You guys have the same haircuts too, which is nice.
He's just such a genius. So,
Thanks, Nettie. Great question, and good luck with your music. What do you perform? You vocalist? What are you?
I play saxophone.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So cool.
Awesome.
Thank you, Nettie. We have time for one final studio audience question. It's going to come from right up front.
Hi, I'm Brian.
Hey, Brian, nice
I'm
to meet
also
you.
an NYU student. I'm a composer.
Ah,
And so
it's like the program's planted them or something. I don't,
You say
this
you're
is
a
not an
composer?
NYU ad.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Awesome.
So my question is actually, since I write a lot of music, I find myself like sitting on it a lot and I'm too scared to like put it out there. And I was wondering if you guys as content creators have any advice, especially for young people, on like how to overcome that sort of creative anxiety.
You're sort of talking about like sort of compositional paralysis, analysis
yeah,
paralysis.
yeah, like you're afraid to release it or like, that kind of stuff.
I'd say just start putting it out. Just start making chips. You know, that sculptor that said, "How do you do what you do?" He says, "I just start making chips." And I think a good place is Spotify and YouTube, and just create a channel and start small and see what happens. It's better than not doing it.
Right.
But I mean, along the way, try to do it. Try to package it as professionally as possible, because perception creates reality, I think. So, I don't know, make really good recordings and try to do professional artwork wherever possible, and that would be my advice. But we've also done some composition as well. We've got a lot of ideas that are in our phone, and so we totally relate. But that's kind of what I did is, just started recording, and people liked it. It was weird.
Brian, tell me I'd love to know more before I answer that question. Tell me what you think the number one reason is that you are hesitant to put out your material. Can you isolate that?
I guess it's kind of like
is it fear of failure? Is
it's
it
like
vulnerability? Tell me what it is.
it's kind of a mixture of those two mostly.
Okay.
Like, yeah, I don't know. I wasn't expecting a therapy session.
Well, no, I want to know
It's a
more
nice
because
couch
I
you're
think
sitting.
once you isolate what that is, I think you can ask yourself, what is the worst case scenario? What is the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario is humiliation, but is that all that bad? Because you can bounce back from that. A lot of people have. I mean, think about all the great composers and the great artists out there that have written a dud. Everybody has. They have. But it wasn't worst case scenario in the end. I think you can accept that and learn to accept that rather than hoping that it never happens. Just say, if it does, I'm okay with that happening. And that failure is such an awesome platform on which to build your character too. I mean, you think about Beethoven. How many times did he write the overtures that he wrote? I mean, I can't even tell a difference between most of them. They're brilliant. They're all brilliant. But I think he spent so much time slaving over that fact that nothing was ever perfect. Forget about perfection and just write you and put you out there. And the worst case scenario is not that bad after all. And the best case scenario is awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Interview, promo, therapy session.
This is
We're
fantastic.
doing it
Let's see,
all
do we do
today.
the checklist? Hold on, one more
Yeah.
thing. Yes, make fun of Jon. I think I got that in, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
a couple
good.
times,
Ooh,
maybe.
a couple times.
All right, well, guys, we're unfortunately out of time. One more time for the Piano Guys. Their album is out now, Limitless.
Thanks, y'all. That's so nice of you. Thank you.
And thank you at home for watching. We'll see you soon.